I'll call the meeting to order. If we could get a roll call when you're ready.
Mr. Allred?
Here.
Ms. Billman?
Here.
Mr. Fell?
Here.
Mr. Fitch?
Here.
Mr. Hopkins?
Here.
Mr. Weisskopf?
Here.
And Ms. Yu?
Here.
We have a quorum. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There was, let's see, there was one change, correct? There was one minor change from the agenda that went out in your packets. The new public hearing for the plan case 2396 PUD 20, it had, in the original agenda, it said 1.51 acres. It's supposed to say 14.51, so that's been amended.
Great, thank you. Minutes from the February 20th, 2020 Plan Commission meeting. Anybody want to move the minutes? Motion by Mr. Fell. Second by Ms. Yu. Any changes to the minutes? By voice vote, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the minutes are approved. We now have, do we have communications?
There are no communications.
Great. No, we don't have a continued public hearing. We do have old business. This is review of the bylaws. These were, which have been amended to allow remote participation and are otherwise unchanged. Anybody have any thoughts on the bylaws? Mr. Hopkins?
I wasn't here last time, so may not want to bring it up, but my recollection is in the bylaws, it says we have a vice chair. We do not have a vice chair, I do not think. Or do we?
It's a good question. I don't think that we do.
And I've been on a few years, and I don't remember ever having a vice chair.
Right.
My suggestion at this point is that we not do anything about it. But that we might, at some time, think about making our bylaws consistent with our actions or vice versa. And my reaction is that it probably makes sense to make our bylaws consistent with our actions.
And would you have a recommendation for changing the bylaws or changing the actions?
Changing the bylaws.
Okay. So no vice chair in the bylaws is the suggestion?
Because the way it's written, it implies a particular pattern of how that role goes, and my recollection over the years is that it wouldn't have worked, because usually when we need somebody to step in, it's whoever's here, and
Yeah.
it doesn't seem to accomplish anything.
Should we have a discussion about that, or just move on?
Well, it's not a proposed change. If we do propose to change it now, we could do that. We would just have to continue this again, and repost it to an agenda. We can't vote on it at the same meeting that if we change it.
Correct. I would, I'd suggest that, well, we can look into it. Staff can look into whether that change would affect anything, rather than making a change on the fly and then having to continue it. So I'll look into that, and then I will.
Bring a staff report
Bring
at a
it.
future meeting?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Everybody okay with that?
And then we vote on this.
We could vote on
now,
this now, yes.
And that could be a separate action.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
We do need to discuss it. We're going to do it.
We do, yeah. I think slowing down and giving it some thought is probably the best course. So, Mr. Hopkins? No? Anybody, anything else?
Oh. Does somebody have to move this?
Somebody has to move it and we'll vote on it. Roll call.
We didn't get any paper tonight?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, we do.
it just says review of bylaws. There's no
Yeah.
case number.
There's really nothing until,
Do we have an agenda?
yes, we do. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
And
So,
one question before we do this, does this even require council action at all? I'm just kidding.
For the bylaws?
Correct.
No, it does not.
Okay. I didn't think so. All right.
okay, so I'll move that we amend the bylaws as presented.
It's page 2.
And in section 6, page 2.
Great. There's a motion by Mr. Hopkins. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Billman. Anything further? If not, we can have a roll call vote whenever you're ready.
Okay, Mr. Weiskopf?
Aye.
Ms. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Allred?
Yes.
Ms. Billman?
Yes.
Mr. Fell?
Yes.
Mr. Fitch?
Yep.
And Mr. Hopkins?
Yes.
That motion passes, and the bylaws are amended. Now we have a new public hearing, Plan Case 2396 PUD 20, request by Union Development Holdings LLC to amend the Melrose Apartments Urbana Planned Unit Development to exclude the western 14.51 acres located at 1208 West Bradley Avenue.
Hello, everybody. Let me just get set up really fast. Before I get started, I just want to clarify a little bit about what we're talking about, because I personally think it's a little confusing. So I just wanted to make sure that as we're talking about, the petitioner is requesting to amend an existing PUD, and this is what on the screen is the existing PUD, and there is a proposed development. So the packet talks at length about the proposed development, but that would be, if approved, the amendment to the PUD would be a by right development. And the PUD would be amended to look more like this, and there would be a by right development next to it. So just wanted to clear that up a little bit, and then I will get started on this. The petitioner is in the audience tonight for any questions. So Union Development Holdings LLC is requesting to build a by right apartment complex on the vacant lot to the west of One North apartment complex along Bradley Avenue. As the parcel is currently a part of a PUD, planned unit development, without an amendment, any new development would be required to generally conform to the site plan of the Melrose Apartments of Urbana planned unit development from 1996. For this PUD amendment request, the Plan Commission must review the application and make a recommendation to City Council. Staff recommends approval to the request to exclude the 14.51 acres from the original PUD, which will allow development of the site that meets all requirements of the R4 medium density multifamily residential zoning district. A little bit of background. The 1982 comprehensive plan included future aspirations for the North Lincoln Avenue area to be developed as a commercial corridor. By the mid-90s, the corridor had several hotels, a new gas station, and retail developments. In 1996, Intergroup applied to the city for a comprehensive plan amendment, a zoning map amendment, a special use permit, and a planned unit development with a development agreement alongside for the land that today includes One North, Capstone Quarters, and the vacant 14.51 acres at 1208 Bradley Avenue. That was their phase 2. One North was the only part of the original planned unit development that was constructed. Phase 2 property remained undeveloped since the approved PUD, which was 24 years ago. So you can see there's the existing zoning of the area, which is R4 primarily. Then you see that there's a commercial corridor and a little bit of industrial all along Lincoln Avenue. And then you see a Champaign single-family neighborhood and Urbana single-family neighborhood nearby.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing on the screen, it indicates this area as commercial zoning, which is
Yeah,
incorrect.
I wish it wouldn't say that. That is from land use codes that are pulled from the tax assessor, like a lot of our
So
information
this
does.
isn't actually zoning.
It's zoned R4 with a planned unit development. That's just the land use label that the tax assessor has on file for it, which was much more aspirational than what it really is. It's actually trees and brush. Yeah.
So that should say R4, just for all intents and purposes.
That's an
Yeah.
error.
Yeah.
It's not,
It is, yeah. It's an error with the tax assessor's information.
but, wait a minute. Are we saying that our database is generating this map? If I go to the zoning map, is it going to be correct or incorrect?
The zoning map is correct. So the zoning map it's R4, and all of that area is
Okay.
R4.
Right. I think this is, so this is a map that's showing zoning, but it also has some labels poking through that R4, not R-4, that are for the land use labels as well. So,
Yeah.
yes, it's an error. It's confusing.
Yeah.
The whole thing is R4.
Yeah. It
No,
is.
it's-
It's
but
very aspirational.
It's, well,
All right. Yes, thank you. Due to the relatively large size of the Phase 2 property in relation to the whole PUD, allowing it to be developed as proposed is too significant to change and be considered a minor change or a minor amendment to the planned unit development. Though overall, the plans are quite similar, especially considering that this was 1996 when it was approved, and would develop a site at or around the same level of intensity. The staff report goes a little bit more into detail about that. Here you can also see, and it still has that commercial, please ignore, the comprehensive plan, future land use designations. And it had the area in 2005 classified as multifamily. This development generally meets the goals and objectives of the 2005 comprehensive plan. The PUD goals and applicability are not relevant in this case. The site is currently part of the Melrose Apartments of Urbana PUD. The applicant requests the Phase 2 section of that PUD be removed so a by right development could be built. The staff report discusses the criteria for approval. The first criteria for approval is that the proposed development is conducive to the public convenience at that location. The existing PUD was approved. City Council found it to be conducive to the public convenience. The request at hand is to allow a development that is consistent with the underlying zoning district by removing the property from the existing PUD. The proposed development is consistent with the underlying zoning district in which is conducive to the public convenience. The land is vacant. Any proposed development will likely not match the approved PUD. Second criteria, that the proposed development is designed, located, and proposed to be operated so that it will not be unreasonably injurious or detrimental to the surrounding areas or otherwise injurious or detrimental to the public welfare. The proposed development would be allowed by right in the R4 medium-density multifamily residential zoning district. Since the proposal will meet the requirements for the underlying zoning district, it will not be injurious or detrimental to the public welfare. 3, that the proposed development is consistent with the goals, objectives, and future land uses of the Urbana Comprehensive Plan and other relevant plans and policies. The proposed development is consistent with goals, objectives, and future land uses of the 2005 Comprehensive Plan. As the proposed development on the property is to be excluded from the existing PUD in order to build housing units below market rate rent at a location with excellent access to major employers. 4, the proposed development is consistent with the purpose and goals of Section 13.3. The PUD is consistent with the proposed goals, the purpose and goals of Section 13.3. The amendment would not affect this in any way. And that the proposed 5, that the proposed development is responsive to the relevant recommended design features identified in Table 8-2 of this ordinance. The proposed development will be by right. This criterion is not relevant to the removal of land from a PUD. I'm going to go over the summary of staff findings. Union Development Holdings, LLC, requests an amendment to Melrose Apartments of Urbana Planned Unit Development for a property at 1208 Bradley Avenue. The applicant requests to exclude this property from the existing PUD and develop the property to the R4 medium-density multifamily residential zoning district. The property is underdeveloped at 14.51 acres in size, or 37% of the existing PUD. 2, the applicant will be asking for funding from the State of Illinois' Department of Housing Development Authority and City of Urbana's HOME program to construct affordable apartments on the site. 3, the subject property is suitable for medium-density residential uses, like the proposed R4 medium-density multifamily residential zoning district. The exclusion of this property from the existing PUD and development to the underlying zoning district is conducive and convenient to the public. 4, the request to develop the property to R4 medium-density multifamily residential zoning district would allow the owner to build. This would be generally compatible with the multifamily residential future land use designation of the 2005 Urbana Comprehensive Plan. 5, the existing PUD is consistent with the purpose and goals of Section 13.3, and the proposed exclusion of the subject property does not affect the existing PUD. The following are the options for Plan Commission. The Plan Commission has the following options for recommendations to the City Council in case number 2396-PUD-20. 1, recommend approval of amending the existing plan unit development to exclude the 14.5 acre parcel at 1208 Bradley Avenue. 2, recommend approval for amending the existing planned unit development to exclude the 14.5 acre parcel at 1208 Bradley Avenue with conditions. 3, recommend denial of amending the existing plan unit development to exclude the 14.5 acre parcel at 1208 Bradley Avenue. Based on the evidence presented at in the discussion above, and without the benefit of considering additional evidence that may be presented at the public hearing, staff recommends the Plan Commission make a recommendation to City Council to approve the amendment to the Melrose Apartments of Urbana Planned Unit Development.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Wilcott? Mr. Fell?
I'm a little confused and would like a little bit of clarification. So is this 14-acre piece of property being changed of what it happens under the PUD, or is this 14 acres being removed from the PUD and is now something else?
The requester is asking to remove the property from the PUD.
Okay. My first question is, when your PUD is approved, there are all sorts of, we must conform to the site plan that was shown and all kinds of other things. That's all copacetic with the city staff? We're all good with that?
Yeah, it wouldn't conform to the general site plan. It would be a by right development that would be outside of the 1996 site plan that was approved.
But I guess part of my point is, I wasn't on the commission when the PUD was approved, so oftentimes when I'm involved in a new PUD, we have a third of the site over here. Well, that third of the site may have had the clubhouse on it, or may have had other amenities that were supposed to go with this PUD that now are going to vanish. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that all we're good there.
There were just buildings on
Okay.
this part of it. The clubhouse was built, and it's over near the
Yeah,
front
I
on
know.
Lincoln Avenue. Yeah, absolutely. So it was apartment buildings, and that is very similar. So you can see in your exhibits what they are proposing to build, and you can also see what was approved as meant to be generally conforming in 1996. And they look kind of similar. The buildings are in different places, and they're slightly different sizes.
Okay. My next question is,
Yeah.
when this is, I'll say separated off, is there a property line, or is it one property?
There are two properties.
Okay, has city staff and building safety looked at, I'm guessing those buildings along the west side are close to being out of compliance when a property line is put there, because there are fire separation distances, fire ratings for walls, all kinds of things that come into play.
So that's a great question. If this gets approved, a part of the ordinance would be amending the PUD to match what was built. So it wouldn't be out of compliance with
So we're going to move the
yards and
property line?
No, the property line is the same.
Well, it matters a great deal if those buildings are 29 feet 11 inches from the property line or 30 feet from the property line?
When a PUD goes forward, the zoning becomes a little bit more flexible.
But my
And so
point, my
it would
point
be-
is, we can't put a property line there that throws the existing buildings out of code compliance.
There's
The property line
already-
needs to be moved if that's the case.
There's an existing property line, and the PUD site plan would be amended to just be what was built on 1 North in their property.
No, I understand that, but I think you're missing my point here a little bit. There was, when the PUD was approved, there was a property, I assume there was a property line there because there's a little offset on the north side, okay? Essentially, when you build over an entire site like this, the property line goes away. It's gone. You can build over 2 sites and the property line makes no difference. We're putting a property line back in where, when these buildings were built, there wasn't a property line because it was 1 PUD. So there are very strict building code requirements that happen depending on how close the buildings are to the property line and how they're constructed, how many windows they have, all kinds of things.
Right.
And if city staff and building safety have looked at it and those issues are okay, I'm okay with that. If they haven't looked at it, they need to.
Yeah, police and fire and building safety have all looked at and
Okay.
reviewed the plans, yeah. But thank you. Yeah, and actually that side that's farthest, I'm going to see if that's the old, here we go. Let me pull it up really fast. The side that's closest is going to be a private access drive, so.
Go back to the site plan.
So here's the site, what's actually going to be approved.
Well, I care more about the other side.
So, see, there's a distance from the buildings, and then there's an access drive.
Right, but
The
I'm...
the old PUD is only going to be 5 feet from the property line, it looks like.
Right, and that, if it's 5 feet from the property line, those buildings are out of code compliance.
Right, so the PUD would still exist. It would just be amended. So the
But
property line.
that's, I'm sorry, but that's irrelevant to this discussion.
Let me try this from a different point of view. We're doing 2 things. We're creating a separate lot from a PUD/zoning point of view. We're amending a PUD, and by doing that, we're allowing a by right development. And the by right development hasn't been built yet. It's got a proposed design. That design is all going to meet code because it's going to be inspected. And this shows one other question I've got too. But by looking at this, it's not a zoning question, it's a building code question. The property line now matters that didn't matter before. And we can't make existing buildings not code compliant. So either the property line, I think the solution is an easy quote solution. I can't move the screen. If we could get the whole site on the screen, it would be
sure.
nice. There we go. So the problem is going to be the southernmost building is going to be too close to the property line. The current layout of the entry, which needs to be where it is because it aligns with the street from the south, there's going to have to be a code variance there, and the property line needs to be moved west by 25 feet, which doesn't change anything other than it creates code compliance issues. These are things that I don't think are our task, but I think we need to get them in the record because otherwise we're going to have problems later.
Well,
Mr. Gressman.
I'd just like to clarify, we're not going to approve any new buildings on the new site
Right.
that wouldn't meet building safety
No,
code.
that's not...
That's
So-
exactly what I'm saying. That is
Right.
not the problem. The problem is by creating an amended PUD, we are making the existing buildings not code compliant. And
I'm not sure I see how they're being made not code compliant.
because the
they're-
property line, imagine the existing PUD approval. The property line between Phase 1 and Phase 2 gets erased in terms of a legal requirement related to building codes. We are now redrawing, that is, we're reintroducing from a legal point of view, that property line, which ends up being too close to the buildings that exist.
And
How,
again-
and how close is too close? Because I'm
Well,
looking,
it's-
I'm
it-
looking at this exhibit, and the existing buildings that you can see on the east side meet the 5-foot required setback
Well, it's
at
not-
least.
But
So-
again, think of this, again, we're not a building code department, right? But that's part of my job. This is not a zoning issue at all, okay? But I don't know, assuming the setback is 5 feet, the setback is 5 feet, and I have no idea what construction type these buildings are, how big they are, what open space is around them, but in general, I would assume these buildings are probably built to 5A construction. 5A construction limits the amount of windows you can have to the fire separation distance, and in this case, the fire separation distance is measured to the property line because there's no street or anything. And if that fire separation distance is 5 feet, you have 0 windows allowed on that wall. You only get unlimited windows in the wall when you get to a 30-foot fire separation distance. I have no idea what construction type this is. I don't know how many windows are facing that side, but it could be a case where if this property line, and I'm not saying this is the number, if these buildings are closer than 30 feet to this property line, they're out of code compliance.
But if the answer to the question, has building safety looked at this, is yes, aren't you okay?
Well, I mean, I have to say, yes, I'm okay, because that's their job, but if they looked at this and said, yes, with this, with my knowledge, they're wrong. And what I don't want to see is us approve this, and then there's a big problem, right?
Yeah, let's take the rest of it to discussion.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, okay.
any further questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Hopkins?
The, another thing we lose by taking this out of PUD is some degree of what would amount to subdivision control. And there isn't actually a subdivision, though it's sort of like a subdivision, because we're creating the parcel. The connectivity here, northwest corner, this shows connectivity to the street network, which I think is important. But what I'm wondering is, do we have, can we be sure that happens? If it were a PUD, we could. And I'm guessing from a fire point of view, there would have to be 2 entrances to this
Correct.
under normal development, except under the PUD to the east, which is much larger, there's only 1. And that, I'm sure, was approved, and the nature of the entrance and everything is double wide and so on. So again, this may be something just to have in the record, that I think the street connectivity shown on this diagram is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And Public Works is also taking a look at this, and they have their own requirements for access guidelines, and one of those is making sure that it is in line with Goodwin Avenue to the south.
Oh, I'm actually talking about the Goodwin Avenue one, and I agree. I mentioned that earlier. I'm talking now about the northwest.
Oh, yes,
Where
Federal
we've had
Drive,
major problems getting a street network
Yeah.
right,
connection up there. We've battled this multiple times.
right.
So this is important, is all I'm saying.
Mr. Allred?
A couple questions. One, since I couldn't see or find the existing or the original PUD agreement anywhere to look at, but I'm just curious, what were the rationale for the PUD, or what sort of relief did the developer get from the existing regulations, and does removing this affect that in any way in a negative sense, is one question. And then the second question has to do with this alignment and connectivity issue to the northwest, and I guess also to the one north. I mean, there is a dead-end street in one north to the kind of southern part of the image there, I think. So I assume that in their original site plan, that would have continued through to the phase 2 of the project and provided some better connectivity than would exist with the current site plan. And I don't know if that's something that bears on this decision or not, because this would be a separate by right development. But that connectivity to the northwest, that's tied to the other, I think it's called the Union Gardens development? Is that
Yeah.
connecting to that development?
Absolutely, yeah. And this is something that, again, Public Works has talked a lot with these folks here, lovely folks here, and also Union Gardens. And it's on I think the final plat for Union Gardens is connecting to Federal Drive in the northwest corner. And a little bit of background about the dead end, and then I'll try to backtrack to your first question. The current owners of One North do not wish to, whatever does happen with this property, connect that street. And this kind of goes back to your first question. The zoning relief that they were wishing to seek in 1996, it was a little strange because a lot of changes have happened to the plan unit development regulations in Urbana since, but they were seeking to not build a chain link fence, and that was required for them to build a chain link fence through this. And I've gone through the council minutes, and the ordinance says this is what we want. We don't want to build a chain link fence. So now it's a painted black chain link fence, which is totally allowed in the ordinance that was written for it. But they wanted to have a kind of a gated community in 1996. So the connectivity, at least for what was the original idea, was was going to be, phase 2 was going to be a fenced multifamily development. I think that was Exhibit E. You might be able to, oh, nope, sorry, here we go, Exhibit E. So the road was going to connect, and then they were going to have all these happy-looking buildings go around in a circle. And so the connectivity wouldn't have connected to Federal Drive. It wouldn't have connected to Goodwin Avenue either, and that was actually part of the 1982 Comprehensive Plan Amendment, because that was explicitly drawn out. So,
Any further questions? Did she answer? Yep. Oh, Ms. Billman?
I'm still confused. Is the only entrance on Bradley? And there's one, I mean, you've probably been talking about this, but,
oh no, yeah. So the entrance is proposed for a by right development. So if this was approved and it was amended,
I don't see it on.
they're proposing an entrance
Okay.
on Bradley and then also an entrance off of Federal on the corner.
Okay, I was just looking at my Google map and wasn't seeing anything there. So it's, okay. Yeah, I'm still not seeing, are they building that?
Yes,
Okay.
that has to be constructed. Same
Okay.
with Union Gardens, that has to be constructed as well.
Okay.
Further questions? Nope. Thank you very much. Let me just quickly run over the procedures for a public hearing. Staff has presented a case. Next, the petitioner or your representative may address the commission, and other proponents of this proposal will be heard. Opponents of the request can then address the commission, and others may be heard, and then the petitioner gets the last chance to talk to the planning commission if they so desire. Then we'll close the public hearing and discuss and possibly vote prior to sending it to a recommendation to council. So petitioner, if you would like to, if there's anything you would like to tell us about this, please feel free. Or if anybody has questions for them? No?
So there looks like there's public input.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, sure. Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, if you could just sign your name and state it.
Yeah, I'm Lori Edwards. I'm with the Annex Group. We are, and Union Development
Hold
Holdings.
back into the microphone.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are developing this property, and
Uh-huh.
I think in essence, we just want to stress that if the PUD is removed, and once the, the technicalities are discussed, that nothing can be developed on this site without the PUD being removed. It's a student housing complex next door. A student housing complex is also going in on the other side of this property, and we just feel pretty confident that once, again, the discussions are made available, that the affordable housing that we're developing is going to be a new mix and meet with the comp plan that's also been identified in 2005. So that's kind of what we want to stress.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Edwards? No? Well, thank you for introducing yourself.
Sure.
Thank you. Now, is anybody else in favor of this proposal wishes to talk to the Plan Commission? Is anybody opposed to the proposal wish to talk to the Plan Commission? Sir, if you could come to the desk and sign your name and then state your name.
Okay, I don't know where to start.
What's your name, sir?
Oh, Jim Heimberger.
Jim Heimberger, okay. Thank
I
you.
own the property right next door to where you are proposing this new building site. I'm not opposed to it
Okay. Now, are you talking about the...
because I'm going to, my piece of property is under contract. It's been under contract for 2 years, but the developer has not come through yet. But I'm very disappointed tonight. I have terrible ringing in my ears. I've addressed the city people last meeting that I was here. There's nothing written information about what was going on tonight on the back table. Me as the owner right next door, I don't know what you people were talking about. All I could ever hear was boundaries this and boundaries that. The sound system is not the best. And it would help also if you see how I'm speaking, because I learned this a long time ago. You got to have it right in front of you and up close, or it doesn't get picked up by certain systems. And I think this is one of the systems, because these folks, I couldn't tell you what they said. And I was very disappointed that I couldn't come. I came tonight just to see what was going on a little bit, since I'm right next door to it. I don't know what these gentlemen were talking about boundaries. There was nothing on the thing that told me what they were talking about outside of a picture up there. So I don't know, maybe a marker, or maybe even if they have a system where, you know, it puts up what the people are saying on the screen. I don't know what that's called, but, you know, the TVs have that.
Yeah.
And I think that would help very, very much so, especially someone like me. If I could do something for the ringing in the ears, it would have been done. But there's nothing they can do for it. Hearing aids does not help it. And so when you're sitting in here, you can hear it much better than when you're out here in the seats.
Do you have a specific question? The boundary issue was that by breaking this off from the planned unit development, it introduces a boundary line between what once was a contiguous property, separating out the property that Union seeks to develop from the existing planned unit development. And we were worried that that boundary line would put some of those buildings in the existing planned unit development out of conformance with building code. So that's what we were trying to say.
Okay, now I could hear you really good in here. I could hear you out there somewhat.
Okay.
So I just, for public speaking, you got to give it some oomph because it doesn't come through. And I've talked to these folks here last meeting and whatever, but it'd also be great to have the agenda, what's going to go on, back on the back table. It doesn't take but maybe a half a dozen or a dozen pieces of paper, and I'm sure it's that much is thrown away every day. So
Well, yeah,
that's just my concern about coming to these meetings. I went to a lot of meetings on the landfill, and it was better sound then than it is today.
well, certainly take that under advisement,
Yeah.
and
So,
they can always
that's all.
provide you with copies.
Yeah,
if you reach out,
I'm
yeah.
not opposed to this because
Okay.
I'm going to. Hopefully, my property's going to
Who's
do.
going to go too, yeah.
Same sort of thing. So I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to build some buildings.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Could you be specific about which property you own?
Right to the west, there's 40 acres.
That's the one it's currently zoned agriculture?
Yeah, it's agriculture now.
Currently zoned.
But we've been through all the meetings in the last 2 years.
Great.
I just
and-
wasn't sure which property.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I hear you, and I just wasn't sure which property.
Yeah,
I'm aware of,
yeah, it's
Oh,
40
okay.
acres straight to the west.
Okay.
But I'm not opposed to it.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else wish to address the commission on this case? Sir, if you could come up and sign your name and state your name. Good.
I have the property 1125 Bradley.
What's your name, sir?
Mohammed Abed.
Mohammed Abed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And continue, I'm sorry.
I have the property next, I think that's 1125 in Bradley. That's west of that property, right?
I'm sorry, Mr. Abed, could you speak into the microphone?
Oh, 1125, my property, 11 west of that, I think where the project gonna be making those, that's what, in Bradley, 1125 mine, 2 acres. And they have one house and 2 acres land in it. Is that west of that place? the one
I'm
they
not
built?
sure. I don't have the addresses here in front of me.
Yeah, but it'd have to be south, I think.
I think 1138
Here,
they are.
Are you next to the funeral home?
Yes,
You're just east of the funeral home.
yes, sir.
Okay, so it's the single-family.
Right.
Large lot.
They have one
directly
house
south.
Yes.
in it and plus the.
I know which one it is.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, sir, what's your concern?
Well, is that, when I bought the property, they told me, is that commercial? Is that true?
On the other side?
Yeah,
Where they're proposing to develop now?
yeah, next to the funeral home.
I'm not sure about that. You're talking on the south side of Bradley.
In Bradley, yes.
On Bradley and Goodwin?
Yes.
Yes, that's zoned B2, which is neighborhood business.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it is commercial. We're not proposing any change to that property.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not against that. It'll be okay. You know,
Okay.
just I want to find out.
Just
if
getting
it's
some
okay.
information. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Anybody else wish to address the commission? If not, I'll close the public input portion of the hearing, and we will continue with discussion and possible action. Any thoughts other than what you want to, that you've already expressed?
No.
I want
Ms. Yu?
I want to ask a clarification question. When you said the fire department and public safety has looked the plan, did they look at this phase 2 or did they look re-evaluate the phase 1?
Yeah, so they were looking at what was being proposed for this Phase 2. Phase 1 isn't proposed for any changes, and when this was originally built, they discussed, building safety has looked at all the plans, and when they discussed the 1996 PUD, police and fire had a lot of discussion about the one entrance off of Lincoln Avenue, and they approved that.
So, to summarize, when you say the public safety and fire department look and reviewed it, they reviewed the Phase 2, not the Phase 1. The Phase 1 discussion happened in 1997 when they approved the entire PUD.
Yes.
All right, further questions? No? All right,
I have a question, I
Mr.
guess.
Fell?
I'm going to go to Lou's point here of the Northwest Access Drive, which is proposed under a different, I don't remember, it was a PUD, I believe, right?
I think that
In the original.
No, this,
No,
this piece right here that we're connecting to that's not there yet,
one, right.
right? Well, what guarantee do we have that that piece is going to get put in there?
There is no guarantee at this point, but that is what is proposed. You're talking on the Union Gardens side, on the west side?
I mean, if Union Gardens doesn't fill out their PUD or doesn't build that corner and build that road, we have no connectivity there, and we can't.
But we still do the Federal Drive.
Right. So what the Annex Group has agreed to do is to dedicate some right-of-way on this Phase 2 portion for a future road and to build a stub there so that if something gets built on the west side, it will connect to that and the Federal Drive extension. There is no guarantee that Federal Drive will be extended. It is contingent on the Union Gardens development being built and right-of-way being dedicated. But on this parcel, on this Phase 2 parcel, the best they can do is agree to dedicate right-of-way
Okay.
and to build that stub street.
And again, the fire department is okay if that never gets built?
Well, I mean, I guess they would have to be at this point.
Okay.
I mean, we could build that at some point in the future,
I guess
but
my question is, the fire department has looked at that and has said, basically has signed off, if that little spur doesn't get built, they're still okay with this development.
well, of course they'd like it if it went through. But if you look back at what was approved in the original PUD, it wasn't going to connect at all.
Okay,
So we've been living with that since the 90s.
okay.
All right. Mr. Allred?
Yeah, just another clarification question. So does the site plan for this new proposed development have any bearing on our decision whether or not to amend the PUD agreement and remove this Phase 2 parcel from the agreement?
I don't think that it really does factor in. We provided this to give information. This is kind of tricky. I don't know that we've really ever amended a PUD to remove a part of a PUD. So we had to consult with our legal division. And we weren't even sure if it would need a PUD amendment, first of all. But just to be thorough, we decided that an amendment was the way to go, and that's why it's being brought forward.
Mr. Hopkins?
So I want to try to, in a sense, answer that question. I believe what we're doing is creating a zoning parcel that will be zoned R4 under separate ownership from the PUD, which becomes its own parcel to which the PUD approved. We are doing nothing at this meeting other than creating a 14.51 acre parcel zoned R4. Legally, I think that's what we're doing.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Agreed.
And so what I said earlier, I would repeat, that the record of our discussion includes commentary about this site plan, which is in the record as relevant if this ends up being a vacant R4 parcel for some reason. But it has no legal standing.
I agree.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So I will move that we send plan case number 2396 PUD 20, which is an odd label with the PUD on it,
Yeah.
to the city council with recommendation of approval.
Motion by Mr. Hopkins,
I second.
second by Mr. Weiskopf. And any further discussion?
Yeah.
Mr. Fell?
I just want to make sure, because I won't say I'm 100% convinced. I'm 99% convinced if we put a property line where that property line is, the existing buildings in the PUD are out of code compliance. Now, if the applicant and the city is fine with us approving that, I'm happy to do so. But I think the owner of the PUD is going to be in a world of hurt if we do that.
So we can consult with our building safety division and bring this to their attention, because I honestly don't know
Okay.
that that was on our radar when we
Could
were
we-
considering this. So,
Okay, is it within our purview to put that as a condition that, I don't know how we'd write that condition, that
It
the
is.
property line, that the east property line of the parcel we're creating can be moved? Or does it have to come back if it's determined it needs to be moved? Trying to make this the easiest way we can do it. Like, if we can
Right.
pass this with saying, okay, if this property line is going to be a problem, we're going to allow them the opportunity to adjust it.
well, would you, I
I
mean,
don't think we would get that specific. We could say that pending approval or of building code, any building code issues that arise, you know, some
But
language like that.
Again, part of my point is I'm not trying to overstep our bounds, because I've been told before, we're not a building safety
We're
committee.
not.
We don't care about building safety here. And I'm happy not to care about building safety here, but someone eventually is going to care a lot about it.
Well, we don't care about building safety per se, but when we're approving a new
we
property
do,
line,
but not here.
then, you know, I mean, we do care about it. I misspoke.
I'm sorry.
But you know what I'm saying? We're introducing this by not approving, but recommending approval of the new property line. So, Mr. Hopkins and then Ms. Yu.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm with Ms. Fell on this. I will approve this case, but I will approve with the condition that the building safety look at the Phase 1 parcel and make sure there's no violation to Phase 1. And if there's violation to Phase 1, we give them the opportunity to redraw that property line so it will make Phase 1 in compliance.
Mr. Garcia.
Well, I'm not sure that we are able to add a condition of that nature to this request. I would be all right with taking these concerns to our building safety division, discussing them before this goes to council, so that we can have more information to present to council on this topic. But I'm not certain that we could add a condition to this PUD amendment to that effect.
I think it's a little,
I agree.
Questionable.
Yeah, I think we have to come back to what are we doing legally? We're amending a PUD ordinance as a legal artifact to create a zoning parcel. And the zoning parcel gets created regardless. But there is a difficulty here, and that is that the interests of the parties present does not include the owners of the PUD Phase 1 for whom the problem arises. And I assume they were notified as a property owner within 150 feet. But given how difficult it is for us to understand this question, it's not at all clear to me that it would have immediately occurred to them. And I think I'm okay with the idea that Kevin just suggested, that based on all this discussion, it be clearly dealt with before it goes to council, which I think is quite sufficient, rather than our having to hassle this through again.
Can I comment?
I agree.
And I can comment just a little bit. The application was signed by the current owners, and they had a lot of discussion with us about exactly what we're discussing right now, whether that if this amendment affects their ability to build, rebuild, how conforming their property will be. And they actually helped us a lot with some of these lines. I will say that earlier it sounded like it was 5 feet, the existing buildings. It looks like it's more like 20 feet. from
I
the
could have
property.
misread the thing. Yeah, I'm the
Yeah.
one who said 5 feet.
It's
Okay.
a really
But-
small type.
Yes. In any case,
But-
I think Kevin's solution is sufficient, and I would stand by having made the motion as it stood.
Okay. Any further discussion? In that case, let's go ahead with a roll call on the motion as presented.
Okay. Mr. Fitch,
Yes.
Mr. Hopkins,
Yes.
Mr. Weiskopf,
Yes.
Ms. Yu,
Yes.
Mr. Allred,
Yes.
Mr. Billman.
Yes.
Sorry,
I-
Ms. Billman, my mistake,
Yes.
and Mr. Fell.
Yes.
That motion is approved. Is there a date for, and thanks for your input, everyone, and thanks for abiding the in-depth discussion. Is there a date for council on this?
Why, yes.
There is.
April 19th.
It's the 19th of March.
Great. Is it,
Sorry,
I'm
the
No, that's
the
a Thursday.
16th of March.
okay. Great.
It is the 23rd. Sorry, let's clarify. Apologies. It's the 23rd of March. They've switched the council dates this
Sure.
year on us, and we're still confused. I
23rd of
apologize.
March for council. We don't have any new business. Is there anybody who wishes to address the commission on something that has to do with planning that is not this case that we just decided? No? Is there a staff report?
Sure, just briefly, if you have been following the news, or if you haven't, I guess that's where the staff report comes in. As you all know, we are about to embark on a comprehensive planning effort in a little bit later this year. We have hired on a 3-year, I believe it's a 3-year contract, correct? Andrea Ruedi. And she will be housed over in Public Works. She was the CEO of the Fox Development Group, and she so we're excited to have her on board. And she has a plethora of experience in strategic planning and in real estate, and so we're excited to have her. She's going to be heading up the entire planning process for us.
Great. It's great news. Anything else? No? Okay. We don't have a study session tonight, so we are adjourned. Ms. Billman, we're not adjourned.
I just wondered when our next meeting is.
2 weeks.
Okay.
It's
Yep,
the 19th.
19th.
March 19th. Okay, now we're really adjourned. Thank you.